Welcome and thanks for joining us on the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. Every week, we sit down with CRE experts to uncover trends, insights, and strategies shaping the industry. I'm Shanti Ryle, Director of Content Marketing here at Crexi, and today we are very excited to sit down with Patrick Carino of the NRP Group. Patrick, how's it going?
I'm great. Thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. I know we've been chatting about getting you on the show for a while. Had a couple touch bases, fall off each other's radar, get back on each other's radar. So I'm really
Here.
stoked.
It's all that matters.
Really stoked to be able to make it happen. But before we dive into our conversation today, I'd love to share a little bit more about you with our listeners. So Patrick is the Vice President of Development at the NRP Group, which he joined in 2024 to source and execute market rate developments in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Massachusetts throughout the New England area. Prior to joining NRP, Patrick had a similar role at a regional multifamily and hospitality firm, leading the effort to expand geographically. He started his career as a member of CBRE's New York Institutional Group, where he was involved in the marketing and closing of several billions in investment transactions focused in the Metro New York tri-state region. Patrick graduated from the University of Connecticut, majoring in finance with a concentration in real estate and urban economics, and a minor in environmental economics and policy, and is on the advisory boards of the Northern New Jersey and Fairfield Westchester Urban Land Institute chapters, which means you go to a lot of seminars and a lot of webinars about what's going on in the market, I bet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Patrick, I want to start our conversation with something that's not in your bio, but I think it would be hilarious and maybe should be. What we did cover in our prep call for this conversation, and that's the fact that you started working in real estate in high school. How? Why? What happened? Most people don't even hear about commercial real estate sometimes until they're in their second career phase. So how did you first become aware of it and get into the industry in the first place?
Sure. Yeah, it's a little unique, especially for not being in a family that does real estate, because you usually hear stories when it's a family office of tagging along with family members when you're a little kid. But in high school, I always had a interest in design, and I grew up in a town with kind of cool architecture and these big houses, and so I'd done a pre-college course at Pratt for architecture, and then after that, I actually decided I hated architecture. But my first job was at a spec home builder in town, and it was a relationship my dad had. I think he knew the guy from the gym, and he asked if his son could tag along one year. So my senior year of high school, I was following this guy along, helping him do punch lists at these spec houses being built. He had his own custom mill shop, which was pretty cool. So I kind of owned handling the inventory for that, and it was fun, and I learned a lot.
Yeah. So was this person that you tagged along with more of a mentor figure, or was it kind of like, okay, now that I know this exists, this is where I want to head? Because you went on to university to study aspects of real estate too, right?
Yeah, I definitely learned a lot from him, especially because I came from zero, right? I went from nothing to
Yeah.
something. Um, and I've stayed in touch with him, but it was definitely just like the first step in opening up to the fact that there were people that built houses speculatively to try to sell it, and he was doing some kind of working his way up to commercial stuff at the time. And then my second job was at a multifamily developer. That was a freshman year. And then it's funny, the relationship I had there was my dad knew the guy that did the garbage at the complex, so that was my in there, which I always find funny. So he knew the property manager, who then I got a job with. We were doing a lease up of a new building.
That's
So
hilarious. It's always somebody who
those are
knows
my
somebody.
opinions in the industry. Garbage or
Yeah.
Mac.
Yeah. You really never know who's going to be the connective tissue between you and the next gig.
Exactly.
That's so true in every industry, but really for commercial real estate, that's so true, especially because there's so many moving parts.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about the leap from you did go to college, you studied it, which is, again, pretty rare from a brokerage perspective. Tell me about the journey to getting your first role proper in the industry, which was at CBRE in the brokerage side of things, correct?
Yep.
So tell me about that journey. What made you decide to go that angle? And were there early on any obstacles or challenges you encountered that you feel really set you up for success later in your career?
So I was lucky. I went to UConn that had specifically a real estate program, and there was a lot of groups that hired right from the graduating seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was 20 of us, and everyone except one or two didn't get jobs before we graduated because we had this group of employers, both brokers and principal side, that were just hiring out of like a select colleges because they wanted people that were presumably going to stay local. So I think I interviewed maybe three places, and CBRE, the office was close to where I lived, and I'm sure it had to do with pay, even though looking back now, it wasn't a lot. But the team was really reputable, is really reputable, still around now. They do some of the biggest deals in the market and across the country, and so it wasn't like an active choice. It was just I had a couple people opportunities to interview places, and that was when I got accepted.
Yeah. Tell me about those early years. What was it like jumping headfirst into the brokerage side of things, especially in New York?
Yeah, well, so we covered everything but the 5 boroughs.
Okay.
Northern New Jersey, Westchester, Connecticut, Long Island, and then we did some stuff across the Eastern Seaboard too. But so we had crazy deal volume. It did about $1 billion a year, and the team was about 12 people. And I was, an analyst, associate, and so I was handling everything from underwriting to due diligence to everything but deal sourcing, really. Putting the marketing packages together, and it was a lot, worked a lot, but I got to meet, the interesting thing was like, I found out who all the players were. We represented all the sellers in the market, all the institutional sellers, 20 million plus sellers, and then I knew who all the active buyers were because they were ones on all of our bid sheets. So it was fun and got crazy deal flow, and I spent 4 years in. I got to rotate in all the asset classes that we focused on, retail and office. So it was a nice, even though there wasn't formal training, it was a nice training ground.
Yeah. On one hand, you're getting exposure to not only like who the key players are, but you're getting FaceTime with them. It's not just their phone numbers, right? So you're pre-establishing those relationships for if you were to ever.
I wouldn't say literal FaceTime. I wouldn't say literal FaceTime because I was an analyst, so I was like kept in my cube doing stuff. But like my name was out there. And honestly, when I went to get jobs later in my life, like people recognized my name because I was on the team that was selling their deal or helping them buy it. And so it definitely helped later on. I was like, oh, I worked on that deal you sold a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. Remember me? I did the research for you. Yeah. Speaking of other jobs, that was another interesting thing we covered in our prep call for this was your approach to finding what you want to work on and who you want to work with in this industry, which I think is, some place I want to spend a little time because it's very different than what I've heard about other people finding their next job, where it's more, it just happened to be this person I knew, like your first job. Describe the thinking that went into when you knew it was time to move to another role, and how did you put this strategy into practice to really get to where you wanted to be? And that could apply to the multifamily development or to where you are now with NRP.
Yeah. So I think there's two questions you asked me. One was transition to the principal side was more just I wanted to try something different. I really liked what I was doing, getting great experience, but I wanted to try a different part of the business. I loved real estate and wanted to try the principal side. The next role I had was a startup that didn't really work out. But then the next time, the way I found the job, which is part of what you asked me, was something I was pretty impressed with myself at the time. So I was just applying to jobs online like everyone else, in Indeed, Select Leaders, which was like a real estate focused one at the time. And I either wasn't seeing anything I liked or wasn't hearing back from the people that sounded the most interesting. And part of the reason is, right, you're like applying with you're competing with hundreds of other people. And so what I ended up doing after I got frustrated was made a list of I knew what geography I wanted to stay in, and kind of that narrowed it down a little bit. And so I made a list of all the active players in my market, and I reached out to every single one and asked for a meeting to introduce myself with the goal of just telling them what I'm doing, and I was just relentless about it. So I just hit them with follow-ups until they agreed to meet me. Most people aren't going to be rude and be like, no. So I just literally would ask until they'd let me. And then I had the conversation, was just asking them about themselves. People love talking about themselves, right? It's like what we're doing here. I'm here. But then also telling them my experience and reminding them that I worked on some deals with them. I was at CBRE. And then at the end, I'd be like, hey, by the way, I'm looking for a job. And out of the 9 people that I like got meetings with, I think 5 of them ended up offering me jobs for positions they made specifically for me. And it was like the craziest thing I had achieved at that time in my head. I was like, I got to choose between 5 different jobs and not compete with anyone. It was crazy.
Yeah. There's a lot I want to unpack there. First of all, I would love to know what did you email them? I know there was a volume game, but these people are really busy. These people are doing their own cold calling and networking. And how do you feel you were able to stand head and shoulders above all the other deluge of messaging coming their way?
So 2 things. One was I would try to tailor the outreach just like you do for anything, right? Any cold outreach. First of all, by the way, some were warm, just like I said, like they might know my name because I'd done a deal for them. But even the cold ones, I would try to tailor somehow. Whatever, I know your deal you're working on. It's impressive. We did something together at CBRE. We went to the same college, whatever. But then the second thing, which I think is the more important part, is just like I didn't stop until I got an answer. Because they could either say yes or no. And again, most people aren't going to be rude and just say no. They just feel like it just doesn't happen as much.
Yeah. What would the answer be? Like, can't now meet this.
And then I'd say, all right, and I'll follow up in a couple of weeks. Like,
yeah.
I was going to say, no one said no, leave me alone. And if they did, I'd respect it.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. Is definitely do respect it if they tell you to go away. But yeah, I think it's interesting too, and something I want to underline is you had done the work previously to know about the company, know about the people, find a warm way in if you had one, and like you said, tailor the messaging to that person, because you hear a lot about people, especially job seekers. They'll just say, "Hey, person, me. Also, I don't know you, bye." Like they'll they'll think about themselves, and the pre-work you did made it so anyone you're reaching out to, you would actually do really good work partnering with them. Like it was stuff you were interested in, invested in, you knew about already. You weren't necessarily pretending anything. And again, personalizing it, you did the work ahead of time, and the way you approached the conversations via email showed you did the work. And I'm sure that prep also carried over actually into these meetings, which I'd love for you to share a little bit more about. You said, ask them questions, learn more about them. How did you tee up those conversations such that you didn't feel weird, I guess, at the end asking for a job?
And to emphasize, like at the end, I did not ask for a job. I just told them that I was in the market looking for one, and if they knew of anything, keep me in mind. The goal during the meeting was to like impress them and convince them I'm a smart, hardworking, employable person. So either they or someone they know, would hire me.
How'd you go about doing that? I'm curious, because some people have a tough time.
Yeah, so
I'm teasing.
Sometimes no, but it comes back to what you were saying in the beginning, just like being prepared and like thoughtful to your approach. So like I would make sure I knew every single project that they were working on, read all the news of things they sold recently or in the middle of development with, and what's in their pipeline. I think a couple of them, like I had deal ideas of like maybe something that they hadn't looked at when I was while I was at CBRE, and like, why do you look at this? This is what the buyer ended up doing that would have been right up your alley. And so it was just, and again, like talking about them, and just people love talking about themselves, just like asking questions about yourself. And that's usually the easiest way to get a conversation not awkward, in my experience.
Yeah. Building the skill of curiosity and
Yeah, and because I was like genuinely curious about them. I wanted a job. Like if I wasn't genuinely curious, I wouldn't have been spending that time with them, right? Like I wanted to work with them, so I think they could sense that, like feel it. I
Do
wasn't
you
just there.
think that's a skill that can be developed in folks? Curiosity and the
Yeah,
ability to ask interesting questions and follow-up questions and stay engaged?
yeah. I think a part of it is just like you have to not be embarrassed, like you have to be shameless, while also balancing like not being annoying or rude or whatever, but just like not being afraid to ask questions. Period. That's it. Just not being afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it gets easier the more you do it, definitely.
Just like any skill.
Yeah, I went through a period before I worked at Crexi. This is several years ago now. I briefly flirted with the idea that I wanted to be in the video games world, and I kind of did a thing similar to what you did. I just cold DM'd a bunch of people on LinkedIn, said, "Hey, I am interested in this. I know nothing about it. I would love to know more about what you do." And I mean, you send out a ton of messages, but I actually got like at least a dozen meetings out of people just being willing to share their time and
Yeah.
their knowledge. And same thing, I just said, I want to get into the space, but I would just love to meet you and learn more about it and leave it at that. And I think human beings in general like helping people.
Yeah.
So when the right opportunity comes along, obviously I fell into commercial real estate, so it didn't come along, but
Fair
it was
enough.
a very valuable learning experience and just cold outreach, I think.
Absolutely. Love it.
Yeah. So in that outreach process for you, NRP was where you ended up finally.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 years
So
ago.
tell me about this role that was created for you and why you love it and what you do.
So this one, they'd been, the, so I built a relationship with the guy who hired me a while back, and he'd kind of talked about the role, but they weren't actively hiring, but they were looking to grow, and so um, it's it's somewhere. So acquisitions is kind of, as I've gone out through my career, has been a role that I've decided is a perfect fit for me. It's a good balance of like stability with upside in regards to compensation, and it allows me to kind of play in my strengths. And that is the structure that NRP has. They have like a more specialized model uh, compared to some other institutional groups that's different, where you're kind of throughout the whole process. But this role in this company allows me to focus on pre-development, I call it, which is aligns with what I think I'm good at, what I enjoy, and kind of like what's needed. Um, and so it's sourcing opportunities, negotiating the deals, and then working with my team to get them approved, designed, and then we have a capital markets team that comes and funds them, and then a construction team. And I'm, the developer across the whole process, but I'm really just the beginning of it. And so it's been a good fit so far, and we have some opportunities in the pipeline. Excited about.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting difference, and I'm sure every company kind of does it the way they want to do it. But what do you think are the pros and cons of having that specialist focus on one part of the development pipeline versus somebody kind of overseeing a project from start to finish?
The biggest pro is that you just get to do more, like a bigger volume deal flow,
Mm.
because once you get to whatever stage, you pass it off on your colleagues who are experts and that you trust, and then you go out and you do it again. Versus colleagues that have other firms, can only do they can't do as many because they're transitioning into other roles.
Yeah.
They have deeper and wider experience doing other stuff, like on the construction side than me, and that might be more interesting to them. But those are kind of the biggest pros and cons.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. Because there are some developers I know that, when you get into development, gosh, it's so much work. It's so much to do. So it's an interesting opportunity to angle it as, well, you could just focus on this one thing at this company and you don't have to
Yeah,
worry about the rest of it because you got a whole team.
yeah, and that only works out like big firms. Obviously, if you're doing your own thing, if you're at a small shop,
Yeah,
everyone's.
you gotta handle everything.
But there's pros
So
and cons of that too.
yeah. So what does that handoff process look like, and how do you all have to keep the projects in the pipeline organized so that you can really divvy up the labor there?
So to be perfectly honest, I haven't gone through the full cycle here yet on a deal. So I don't know exactly towards
We'll
the
have to
end.
touch base again, do
Yeah,
another
exactly.
episode.
Part two. But the thing that has been happening so far, which has been great, is everyone, the head of each kind of vertical, is is pretty involved from the very start with me and working with me, and the head of construction for my region, and asset management and leasing and finance, because we're working all together to like get the deal to work from the start and get through the internal committee processes. With pricing and all that stuff. And then as we go through the process, the roles are shifting and people are asking me, as they start picking up things, they might be coming back to me to fill in a hole here and there, but they start taking charge more and slowly transitioning. It's not like a line in the sand.
Yeah. You're not like punting the volleyball over the net. You're like, it's your problem now.
Yeah. And it's truly everyone has to work collaboratively, because everyone also gets like incentivized the same way too. Like the deal has to be successful to all us to get paid throughout the process of the deal.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And I mean, just you need information from everything that will happen after you send the wire before you send any money down the pipeline. So definitely makes sense. You have to have those open conversations. So let's talk through your deal sourcing process. Let's just start there.
Sure.
How do you look for deals? What are your criteria for evaluating deals? What tools do you use, if any, to find good deals on or off market? Just give us a lay of the land of like what your strategy is there.
Yeah. So the criteria at NRP, which has been what I focus on for the last several kind of years of my career, is just land to build ground up apartment buildings. Size 200 to 400 units, construction type can vary. The key thing is that we only buy subject to approvals, which we could talk about in more detail, but we need to know
what does that mean?
So there's different ways to buy land. Some people will buy it quickly and take the entitlement risk, like not know what they can do there. They usually pay less. I can usually pay more, but I need to know what I'm going to build. So it either needs to be zoned already, or I can spend the time and money to bring it through local approvals, and then we close once we have those in hand. And that's just because of our business. Like, we're builders. We're not land speculators, which is just a different business. We buy a lot of land from people that will do that other strategy. But so that's just one of my important criteria. I don't look at deals if like the owner wants a really quick close.
Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, and so I covered the Northeast, like you were saying earlier, and the three main ways I source deals, probably in order of importance, or not importance, but like the way they come along the most, are one, brokers. So, either just being on widely brokered blasts, platforms like Crexi, and seeing people's listings up and reaching out to them, as well as relationships with those brokers when they're told by their client, go to the three most likely buyers that have been doing deals in this municipality already. And those are always like the situations that we do best at, when it's like a special situation where they want someone like us. Some sellers like really only want to deal with institutions because they're usually more professional and have more resources versus cowboys, which can be a little more difficult to go through the process with. So when it's a situation where like they want a certain thing that we can deliver, it's always best versus just like a widely marketed, you're competing with 20 different people and someone out of left field can come in and just do crazy stuff. The second bucket is referrals. So I consider that just like anyone else that sends you a deal, whether it's architects, engineers, land use attorneys, economic development people. It's like we were saying earlier, like jobs can come from anywhere, deals can come from anywhere. All those consultants and people are usually in a position where they can do more business if a deal they know about gets done. And so I'll get calls from architects and be like, hey, a client of mine dropped this opportunity for whatever reason, and have you looked at it? Happy to help you with it if it works. And so I'll see a lot of those And so building relationships with all those people is key. And then the last one, which is kind of the most time consuming and lowest chance of probability of happening, just because you don't know how motivated people are, but it's seeing a property that you think might be interesting and then reaching out to the owner and just tracking
cold
it,
calling.
cold calling, and then tracking it forever until they're ready,
Yeah.
platform like DealNav or something. And those I've done too. And I've tracked them for years and years and years, and they've worked out. Most of them are usually a waste of time, but
Yeah.
the ones that work out, I think, are worth it.
Yeah, it's the you got to dig the deepest, but if it happens, then you already know that property is such a good fit for you that it probably flies through pretty seamlessly after you get the yes.
Yeah, and you're like not competing with anyone, presumably.
Yeah. Because you just asked, hey, sell this to me, please.
Yeah.
So, I'm curious, as you find a deal, let's say, and you're going through all the due diligence periods and entitlements, et cetera, the subject to approval timeline in those cases, what are the biggest variables that can make or break that process? I think generally, and then also if there's anything right now, just market related and, economically related, that you're seeing kind of get in the way or even facilitate some of these transactions happening.
So we do I try to do a lot of homework before I even make an offer, like a ton, just to make sure I'm not wasting my time or money if we're luckily awarded. But that's in regards to if the project's even wanted. So assuming it's not a zone site, I'll go talk to the mayor, economic development person, or someone and just try to get a feel if someone in the town wants it. If everyone tells me absolutely not, don't go for that, someone already tried it, we're going to fight you for it, I don't want to do that. But some developers do, because then there's advantages, because then if you somehow get it done, you'll have no competition ever. But I want to see like a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's some homework I do in the beginning to kind of make sure there's a real opportunity. I don't run into problems. But the things you never know about is when you do go to submit for approvals, there's always an NIMBYism, and you try to do as much kind of outreach beforehand to get ahead of that, but you never know. Zoning can change. I had a deal in New Jersey where in the middle of the approval process, the city changed zoning and the state changed their flood regulations. And my site was in the flood line was in the middle of the property. It was crazy. So that one.
Did you just do only like half of the building and leave the other?
We tried to do something crazy. But yeah, so like things like that happen, and you have to just be able to decide if the changes are still worth it or if they're not, and you just have to drop it and take the loss. But you just try to do as much homework and balance it, really.
Yeah. Sounds like regulatory things are some of the biggest aspects. And then I'm curious, kind of zooming back, I asked a little bit about just market situations currently, but obviously there's, a lot of fluctuation in the development space right now. On one hand, if we have a housing shortage, on the other hand, in some markets, maybe not as much in the Northeast, there's an oversupply that we're now dealing with. Cost of developments have gotten really high. Cost of borrowing has gotten really high. What components of the macro environment in which we find ourselves are you finding having the most or even less than people would expect influence on the deal-making process? And are you seeing, that story play out in any specific ways in New York, in New Jersey, in Connecticut, like individually?
I would say most is rates, just because it creates such a sensitivity of the underwriting. If the exit cap rate can be 100 bips lower, just is so much value. Mm-hmm. But we've kind of stabilized, and we've accepted we're at here. We're not assuming they go down by any means. Some of them that people might be surprised haven't affected us as much, and maybe it just is the firm I'm at. But tariffs. So we did the last time there were tariffs with this president, last time he was in office, we had diversified then. And so this time around, it hasn't affected us as much. And, we underwrite it and take into account, and that just affects what we can pay for the land. But with good deals, like the right deals that check all the boxes, we're able to still make things work. And then what was the last part of the question?
Oh, just if you see any like market specific differences in the different
Oh,
communities you work in.
yeah, it's so hyper local, but I would say just Jersey's maybe more generally pro development. They kind of have a formal redevelopment process that's helpful. New York has some more difficult hoops to jump through when it comes through to in like environmental, and then Massachusetts passed some state incentive regulations for zoning incentives, MBTA communities. So yeah, but it's the Northeast. It's all pretty challenging compared to other parts of the country.
Yeah, it's pretty built out.
Yeah,
There's a lot that's been happening there for a long time.
yeah, not as much farmland we can just scoop up.
Yeah, you got to be strategic. So, being that NRP is so huge, you do focus on one market, but looking ahead at the next year, 2 years, what is keeping you up at night, and what has you most excited about the future of your sector focus?
What keeps me up at night, can I be selfish and just say all my deals that are in process, I think about all night, and then also the need to like fill up and the pipeline and do more.
Mm-hmm.
It's just harder now because of cost and rates and everything. So less deals make sense. All the marginal deals that worked when rates are really low don't, and so there's just less opportunities out there, and it's harder to find. But I've been able to do it. But I just think about that all the time.
Yeah.
And then something I'm excited about, just adding to the housing stock. And there is a housing shortage, even in the markets where there's oversupply right now. They're going to fill up eventually. But in the Northeast, there's a need for housing, and so it's exciting to me to be helping that cause and providing housing.
Yeah, something that struck me. I mean, obviously, a lot of people in this industry gotta love what they do because it can be very grueling and you're not working a 9 to 5. But you told me you were just very passionate about development. You love this industry, so I guess just getting into what you do. Like, do you have any advice for people or love that you would want to share about this industry before we segue into our next topic?
I think development specific, you just have to have patience. And I would
Mm,
say being passionate about like the asset class you're in will also kind of keep you motivated and get you excited. As you, I'm sure, know, like, and I don't know if it's just this industry. I don't really know any other industry. I'm like so laser focused and obsessed
yeah,
with this
since
one,
high
but
school.
like everyone I meet seems to be like really obsessed and passionate, and you rarely see people that leave the industry for like other industries.
Mhm.
I don't know in my experience. So it's just like finding one you resonate with that just gets you excited every day to like do deals in one form or another, whether it's selling them or building them or investing in them or managing them if you're property management, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I'm from the tech space, but something I really love is, we're a tech company for an industry that physically, corporeally affects people's lives and communities and well-being. And it's cool to see the machinations of how it works and who's involved and the
Yeah.
creativity and relationships that are needed to bring it to life. So I get the vibe from you. I feel it. Speaking of tech company, I would be remiss if I didn't double click on that name you mentioned in passing, DealNav, which, for those of you who don't know, listening in, DealNav is Patrick's baby. And I'll let you explain a little bit more about what it is and how it came about.
Sure. Yeah. My first baby before the two humans.
Yeah.
So it's in simplest form, it's a real estate purpose built for real estate CRM and deal tracking tool. And I had originally built it for myself with no intention of sharing it or doing anything with it because I had tracked deals in Excel forever, and then I couldn't find a product in the market that was both map based, because I'm just very visual as most people are in real estate, simple, like only just did the things I wanted, and then affordable. There were some things that did those first two things, but they were really expensive. And so I built my own.
Yeah. How did you go about deciding what were non-negotiable features for the software and what was kind of like, I could build that later? Like what was the most essential need you needed to fill besides just the Excel management?
To be honest, it was just, the list was so small. Like when I say simple, like it doesn't do that much. And so what you see today, which is about a year and a half after I first made like a MVP, isn't that much different. The UI is the interface is a little different and cleaner and better looking now that we have a real tech person on the team, but it essentially does all the same things. But it's a place I wanted to put deals and contacts and link them together, which is really important to me. Some CRMs like you couldn't like associate them, and then show them it all on a map, which is really important to me. And then just do the simple CRM functions of searching, sorting, filtering, setting reminders, adding notes. And that was the list I gave the software developer, and he built it, and that was it. And I was happy with that for like
off
6
to the races.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did word get out, I guess, about it once? Because you didn't intend for anyone else to know about it. You're just like, I needed to create a tool, and kudos to you, because a lot of people will they'll look for something, just kind of maybe compromise on something that doesn't quite fit what they need, or I know a lot of people in our industry that just are like, bah, software, whatever, and like, don't want anything to do with it. So yeah, I'm curious, like how just all of the gumption of making something for yourself aside, like how did the people first hear about it, and then what made you decide to kind of open it up to the broader commercial real estate industry?
The way we met on Twitter, X, I have this account that is pretty much just a rambling stream of consciousness, real estate stream of consciousness for me. And as I was making it, I just tweeted about it a couple of times. I said, I made this thing for myself. I think it's cool. Here's a screenshot. And these strangers on the internet, truly like didn't know who they were like, oh, that seems cool. Can I check it out?
Yeah.
And a couple of them I gave a demo to, meaning I could just show them the product, and they were like, oh, can I sign up? And I was like, no, I don't. There's only one login. I don't have a landing page.
This is mine, dang it.
And then I told a friend about it who is in real estate, had started a tech product, and he was like, oh, you already have people like offering to give you money? It's like, you might have something here. And we worked out a deal where he kind of does everything, because I have a full-time job that I'm enjoy and good at, and I know literally nothing about tech.
Yeah.
And that's how it first started.
Yeah. I what is it like? It's the reluctant politician, the reluctant tech startup founder. I don't actually want to do this here. I'll just be the face of it.
I wasn't reluctant, but I told him I don't want to. I can't. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
But you do. Let's do it.
Yeah. So moving forward, now that you have a tech company, even though you have your full-time job, I guess, do you have any plans to kind of grow it more, or just let more people use it? Any visions of the future of DealNav?
Yeah, so both is the answer. We want to scale it with more members. I'm convinced there's an incredible amount of people out there that are still tracking deals on Excel, a whiteboard in their head, and those are who we are really targeting. We're like trying to get people out of those things and just into the next step. There's people already there that want something hardcore, which there's lots of products out there for them, but to get them off the whiteboard and Excel, this is like a little baby step. And then we have a long roadmap too, like soft development roadmap for features, and we're trying to focus on the ones that have been requested the most, which includes custom fields and columns, which might sound kind of silly, but when I originally made it, I only made fields that I
You
cared
made your
about.
own custom fields. Yeah.
Now those were the only options, but now we have people, doing data centers that need a megawatt field out in Virginia, and guys in California, and a woman in Texas that wanted some custom things. So that's been the most important one. And then some more fun things like getting the map to be even more robust, which will allow people to do more things, integrations with data providers and listing groups like Crexi maybe. So we're talking we're thinking about a lot of options, and those are the top three big features on the roadmap.
So cool. I think, and I actually would be curious about your thoughts about this, because I think you mentioned that you do not use any AI in DealNav, right?
No, we might in the future, but my theory right now is that I've demoed tons of AI products that say they'll find you deals, and they've never been able to do that. And so our position is you have to go find your deals. We're not going to find them for you. You have to find them through relationships, through brokers, through listing websites. If you find them through AI, awesome. And then DealNav is a place to just store that proprietary data in a visual and efficient and reliable way that you can then organize and get back to it easily and visualize it on the map and see trends and do all that good stuff. But we're just kind of trying to fill that one hole.
Yeah. Focus on one thing and do it very, very, very well is a great focus to have. Awesome. I definitely encourage people who are on the hunt for deals and have ones they need to track to check out DealNav. It is very cool. If I ever get into the acquisition space, I know it'll definitely be on my list.
Oh.
Gotta get a couple LPs first. But Patrick, this has been a lot of fun. I'm so glad we finally got to have this podcast. I would like to wrap it up with a couple rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Send you away if you're game.
Yeah. Hit me.
All right. This may be a little bit unfair because you do this for a living, but if you had $50 million that you had to deploy today in commercial real estate, where would you personally invest it and why?
I think I would do vacant suburban office buildings in A towns. That's what I would do.
Please explain the why.
Well, so there's a trend of all this suburban office being converted to not even converted, just demolished and change of uses. A lot of interesting things. Like in my market, I've seen one become a Lifetime Fitness and one's a grocery store, but most of them are multifamily, and they're usually in good locations, and they're usually in a position where the town wants to see something done because it was a big taxpayer, the former occupied office, and now that it's vacant, they're not paying any taxes, and so there's some motivation to get it done. And so I see other people buying them as is, and I am jealous, really, so that's why I picked that.
I like that. That's a nice controversial take. I like that a lot.
Yeah, people are doing it, though.
Yeah, I mean, but the narrative for so long has been like, offices, whatever, like don't even think about them. They're so done, but apparently not. What's the worst advice you've ever been given about being successful in commercial real estate?
I don't know. The funniest worst advice, I don't know if anyone's told me this personally, but you just like see it on the internet, is like you got to wake up at 5 a.m. and work out for 2 hours and do a cold plunge, or you won't be, I don't know, hyped up enough to do deals.
Yeah.
And like you don't have to do those things, I don't think.
I do have thoughts that some people who prescribe those things are trying to sell you something.
That's fair too. I haven't gotten that far in the video to the end where they like sign up for my cold plunge product, but
yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do think there is some amount of truth too. There are things you can do to like build up your energy levels, but more than anything else, I think that inner conviction, that passion you have for commercial real estate or whatever you do is probably a much more efficient long-term battery than regular cold plunges. Wim Hof accepted. He's figured that out. And then finally, if you could go back in time and give your high school self in commercial real estate, your first job, any advice about life, about the business, what would you tell yourself back then?
It would definitely be to just not wait. So I waited literally 13 years to build DealNav. I had this problem and I just dealt with it instead of fixing the problem immediately. And so it's just waiting usually hurts, doesn't help.
Yeah, just do the thing.
Yeah.
Well, Patrick, this has been so much fun. I really, really, again, appreciate your time. Where can people find you on the internet? You have your pseudo-anonymous Twitter handle. Give us every way in case people want to get in touch with you.
Yeah, LinkedIn, it's just my full name, Patrick Carino. Email patrick.carino@gmail. And then the Twitter account is Acquisitione. I'm not going to even try to spell it, but if you can go find it, feel free.
It's a very fun account. Highly recommend go following everywhere. And yeah, again, really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, don't miss the next one. You can go to crexi.com/podcast for our full library. Check out our YouTube channel if you want to see video versions of each episode. And of course, visit us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And if you like what you hear, leave us a review, leave us a rating. We really appreciate it. Thanks. And be sure to tune in next time.